The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Monday, the first day of December 2025. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and a big shout out to HSBC Bermuda for ensuring that we can do this with you on a regular basis and pump through the radio airwaves on Hot 107.5 with these most important community conversations. I'm Jamal Hartman, and we'll have a news break from Simone Vaughn in a bit. Happy Monday to you all. Happy December 1st. You know, folks, today represents so much. No. You should have already been playing your Christmas carols. You're just a Grinch if you still haven't started playing your Christmas carols. But it also marks there's no more hurricane season. So hurricane season officially ended yesterday. Yeah. And, though Mother Nature through hurricanes did wreak havoc and unfortunately tragedy did happen throughout some of our Caribbean friends and cousins and neighbors. For the most part, Bermuda was spared. And so I think we're all happy to see the back end of hurricane season. We're happy to see it behind us. Also, happy December, everybody. You know, it's amazing. We are in the final month of 2025, the final month. And this may make some excited, emotional. And I really want to be careful. And I jokingly said just now that if you haven't started playing your Christmas carols, you're just a Grinch. But I say that, and let me just be very conscious. You know, my mother, her final days were Christmas 2021. And I completely understand that during this period, it's not a happy time for so many people. And I want us to all be conscious of that while we are out celebrating and caroling and, you know, in the holiday spirit, if that's what we choose to do. There are people who this time of year is not the most merry period. So just be conscious of that as we move through this month, this final month, December 2025 of the calendar year. Kenton Trott says, good morning, TDH family. Happy December. And good morning and happy December to he seems extra happy. Kenton, is your birthday in December or something? You three smiley faces. I don't know. All right. Greetings, everyone. And thanks for making us part of your daily routine. A good one today as we welcome economist and former Bermuda College lecturer, Craig Simmons on. We're going to be discussing holiday consumerism. This is such an important conversation right now. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with Mr. Simmons. I've been guilty. I remember my mom was always wanted to make sure her nieces and nephews had Christmas gifts and so on. But I will use my own personal journey when it comes to consumerism and gifts and the like in this conversation with Mr. Simmons. And I really do hope that by the end of this conversation, people feel less guilty about not getting that gift that they cannot afford. Let me repeat. By the end of this conversation, I truly do hope people feel less guilty about not purchasing that gift for a loved one that they cannot afford. Also, folks, the daily play today is holiday trivia. Yep, holiday trivia today. And don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right. Miss Ellen Kate Horton says, good morning. Good morning to you. Suzanne Ingham says, it's a super awesome day, Jamal. TDH is back. Yes, we are back. Kenton Trot says, my birthday is November. We missed your birthday. Happy belated. I hope we didn't miss you. I hope we said it on the day, but happy birthday to you, Kansas Trot. He says, I just love the month of December. It's the one month I always get to see family and friends because life is often so busy. Absolutely, completely appreciate that. All right, let's jump into today's discussion. The questions of the morning. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Premier Burt saying Britain needs to do more for our security? And also, do you believe Britain needs to do more for us? That's a yes or no to you. All right, so where's this coming from? Well, I'm just going over to our friends in the Royal Gazette, titled Premier Britain needs to do more for our security. Well, that's in the question. So this article from the Royal Gazette says David Burt, attending what could be his last or his final joint ministerial council in London as Premier of Bermuda, has said that the overseas territories were adamant that the British government needed to take a more realistic view of its responsibilities for their internal security. Well, Mr. Burt told the Royal Gazette, we are not dealing with European-style crime. We are dealing with American-style crime. I termed them community terrorists. We must deal with these matters. I think the message has been heard. He said the overseas territories are resolute in the fact that we believe that the UK government is not doing enough on internal security and that they need to take a different posture on the overseas territories. Mr. Burt said, I made the point that the UK would not ever allow some of what has taken place in some of the Caribbean OTs to take place in Gibraltar or a Jersey, which is right next to their shores. They do understand and recognize that there is more to be done, and I actually do believe they are hearing the message coming from the overseas territories. The talks have been hosted this week, last week, by Stephen Doughty, the Minister of State for the overseas territories, with leaders and representatives from the 13 territories set priorities, for the year ahead and hear the unique perspectives on how to best enhance the relationship to deliver greater security and prosperity. Mr. Burt emphasized that the Bermuda government carried its own weight in terms of funding for its policing and security resources. He added, the challenge is getting the actual human resources and other resources. The other day, we had another governor's council meeting. There was a request for additional matters related to police radar, which needed to be replaced. Those matters were approved immediately. Funding is not the issue. It's the fact that operations and implementation of internal security are not matters for the government. Those are matters for the UK government and Government House. Mr. Burt said another unspecified OT leader had described a scenario where that was very challenging for him to be in charge of a jurisdiction where they have significant issues with crime and violence, and it seems the UK is not putting its eye on the ball. While Mr. Burt said Bermuda came with a unique constitutional setup, in comparison with Britain's other territories abroad, its affairs remained within the British purview. We have a higher degree of self-governing than other countries, but we are not self-governing, the Premier said. He added that the reality that Bermudians must understand is that overseas territory is a new and fancy term for a colony. It's all semantics. Nothing has changed insofar as the nature of the relationship. Folks, I'm going to stop there. It's a great article to read, right? But the question of the morning, what you've heard so far, what are your thoughts on Premier Burt saying Britain needs to do more for our security? And do you believe Britain needs to do more for us? Do you believe so? What could more help from the UK look like? Maybe deployment of specialist officers, forensics, intelligence support, or investigative units from the UK, or jointly funded teams. Like what could it look like? Is it increased surveillance or border control, helping with anti-smuggling of weapons into Bermuda, or drug importation? Is it a long-term strategist like upgrading the training and intelligence sharing? Why does the Premier or Bermuda see this as necessary? Probably because you've heard police say recently, it seems that the shooters are more accurate, more violent, right? The local resources, we already know, we've heard that we don't have the manpower necessarily. I mean, there could be some benefits from the UK security support. We could get faster results. We might be able to prevent more violence. You know, it could serve as a deterrent of organized crime island-wide. Better trained officers, modern law enforcement tools. Who knows? It could signify that the UK is serious about the safety of their colony or territory. Now, I'm with those in the audience and those who may worry about the sovereignty and feel like, no, we don't want the UK. I also worry about the short termness versus long term and the over reliance on external help. There's also this public perception that if we're bringing outsiders in, that things will stop overnight. I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. This violence didn't happen overnight, so it's not going to just stop overnight. So what will support from the UK look like? What does it look like? And do you believe, or what are your thoughts on the Premier stating this? And do you believe Britain needs to do more for us? Well, we've got Miss Ellen Kate Horton said, no, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to grow up. Well, I don't disagree with Miss Horton, but we don't talk about independence. So I'm not quite sure what kind of growing up we're expecting of fellow Bermudians. Dr. Anthony Richardson says, yes, and this is in accordance with the Bermuda Constitution. The UK is responsible for Bermuda's internal security, which has been lacking for decades. Here's the hard part. I agree with Ms. Horton, but I also agree with Dr. Anthony Richardson and the Premier. And this is why I agree with Dr. Anthony Richardson and the Premier. All the Premier is doing is saying, all right, Bermudians want to remain a colony of Britain, so it's time for Britain to do what they're supposed to do according to the Constitution. That's literally what he's doing. I don't think there's another leader. You could take the blackest of Black Panthers and put them in Bermuda's Premier position, and I think they would probably say, okay, you know what? Bermudians want to remain a territory. We want to remain a colony. If that's the case, according to our Constitution, this is Britain's responsibility. To some, it's a scapegoat. To others, it's, okay, well, this is what being the father or mother of a territory means. You got to take care of home. Kenton Trott says, I believe we should be independent. However, since we are a colony, they must do more for our security. The UK should do everything in regard to the police, in my opinion. I agree with Premier Brett. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I agree with Premier Brett based on Bermuda. Let me be very clear, because I'm going to keep putting this on us. Bermudians want to remain a colony or a territory. So because you want to remain a colony or a territory, this actually is the correct way to go. Now, I do remember, correct me if I'm wrong, folks, I think it was Premier Alex Scott who was overseeing Bermuda during the Hurricane Fabian in 2003. And I remember Bermuda was hit hard, man. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, audience, there was a ship, British ship, ready to come help offshore. And Premier Scott said, no, we're good. Meaning that it was a show of self-determination by the Premier of the day, probably the last Premier we had that really did something to move us towards independence. But I get that. I get those who feel, oh no, we should be taking care of our own affairs. Leave Britain out of this. I understand you. I can't agree based on Bermudians, us, we as a collective are okay being a colony and territory. And because of that, the premier is probably right in this instance. All right, audience. Question of the morning. We're speaking about Premier David Burt's comments, where he basically said, look, Britain needs to do more for Bermuda's security. So what are your thoughts on Premier Burt saying that Britain needs to do more for our security? And yes or no, do you believe Britain needs to do more for us? And Mass BDA says yes. Dr. Anthony Richardson says yes, they can help in terms of providing long-term technology and undercover work. Yeah, I didn't even think of undercover work. Yes. Kenton Trotz says, if you read the legislation, the governor is actually responsible for the police. Yeah. Therefore, that means the UK is in essence responsible. Yeah. The police, the regiment. Yeah. Yeah, he is. I think no, I'm not going to be that person. I was about to say I think everyone should have already know that, but that's not true. That's not true. So Kenton, yeah, thank you for saying that. It is the responsibility. Now, the government's responsible for their budget, but the governor is responsible for the internal security of the island, the security of the island. Bermuda Onion Soup says, thought it was a personal tragedy that he was unable to bring Bermuda to independence as the leader. I do too. I do too. It was, but I think from that point to now, we're even further away from independence than ever before. And that's another conversation. But yeah. Suzanne Ingham says, it sounds like Mr. Burke is passing the buck. Okay, maybe special forces help him out. Maybe. I think he's just trying to pass the buck. It's someone else's responsibility, not his or us. I do think we need some help with the violence. Maybe he is passing the buck, but he's right. Look, you all know David Burke, Premier Bermuda, and I, we're not friends. We don't talk. In fact, we haven't communicated since he was on this show 3-4 years ago, whatever. But one thing I will never sit here and do, or at least try not to do, because, I'm human, is really just go against something because of the person. I actually think I agree with him in this instance. I think I understand him in this instance. I don't, and may be politics, right? To get people thinking like, yo, we are not an independent country. We are a colony of Britain. What they say goes. Shikarina says, does anyone remember when the UK helped us in 2010 with the gun violence? How long was that effort? Did they? I just remember Premier, Dr. the Honorable Premier Ewart Brown wanting to bring in assistance from the US and was denied. I remember that, but I don't necessarily remember the help from the UK. Ms. Alan Kate Horton says, at no point since Premier Alex Scott has Bermuda talked about independence. Absolutely. It's a tragedy. It's an absolute tragedy. And I think part of the reason is we've had, and I say this with respect, we've had leaders who are afraid to disrupt. And I've got respect and love for some of them. We're talking Honorable former Premier Dr. Ewart Brown. We're talking Madam Paula Cox. We're talking Craig Cannonier, Michael Donkley, and now Premier David Burke. I think they were afraid to take it on. But that's another conversation. And I agree with Ms. Horton, says, Ms. Ellen K. Horton says the leadership has dropped the ball. We've got Shamari Sky says, I think they should let us run our own internal police, and the UK has failed. Well, for that to happen, I think we may need independence. I think we may need independence. But we don't want to have that conversation. We're uncomfortable having that conversation. And I understand why. I get it. I honestly get it. I'm not here to chastise anyone who doesn't want independence because I get it. This is your daily discussion brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Folks, thank you so much for rocking with us. If you're appreciating the conversation so far, whatever platform you're on, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter X, or Instagram, make sure you give us a like, love, follow, share the link with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Mass BDA says, and we should not have to fund any help England provide. I agree. I absolutely agree. If it's their responsibility, then why should we have to fund it? I absolutely agree with you. Kenton Trott says the Premier is 100% correct. The UK need to do their job. And I mean, yeah. Folks, this is, let me be very clear in saying this. This is not about David Burke, the individual. It's not about the Bermuda Progressive Labour Party as a party. This is about whoever the government is and the UK. At the end of the day, there were some points made that we should all just put our political perspectives aside and think, actually, if David Burke didn't say this as Premier and someone else said it, it makes sense. That's how I'm looking at it. You all know I disagree with the Premier on a lot of stuff, but I agree on this. I do. Let's go through these final couple comments. Dr. Anthony Richardson says premiers have failed to publicly call out previous governors for failing to act in accordance with the Constitution. Things will only change if we become independent or the governors abide by their constitutional obligations. Kenton Trott says independence is the conversation we should be having. Indeed. Charles H. Jeffs II says, does anyone know what the annual cost is for us to remain in OT? Probably the same for CARICOM. I'm joking. That was just a little shot there. All right, folks. Thanks again to Titan Express and Secure for ensuring we can have these discussions with you folks. We're going to show them some love. Then we'll go to the news break with Simone Vaughn. After that, we've got a very important conversation with Craig Simmons coming up. Stick with us.
The daily discussion is brought to you by Titan Express and Secure. Visit TitanEXBDA.com, your leading tour and transport provider specializing in Black History tours throughout the island. And SecureBDA.com for all your property management, waste management, residential, and commercial trucking needs. Professional, punctual, and reliable service is our commitment to you.
All right, folks, we're going to go to the news in a few. And folks, if you are streaming with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter X, or Instagram, do us a huge favor and give us a like, love, follow, share the link with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Let's get over to Simone Vaughn. And don't forget, after that, we've got Craig Simmons coming up with a very important community conversation. Stick with us.
Good morning, Bermuda. Today's news is brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Since 1984, Bermuda has counted on People's Pharmacy. 4 decades of care, service, and heart. Here's to 41 years of growing together. Starting off today's news, police responded around 9:35 a.m. on Sunday to a single vehicle crash on South Road in Paget, where a car went over an embankment and struck a tree. No injuries were reported, but the vehicle sustained heavy front-end damage and had to be lifted out by crane, causing minor traffic delays. Police are investigating and ask anyone with information to call 295-0011 or 211. Continuing with our news for today, the Bermuda Police Service announced that Mr. Gary Fogo has been located. After being missing since Tuesday, he has been found safe and well. Last in the news for today, the Bermuda Taxi Owners and Operators Association is raising strong concerns after the government of Bermuda began promoting amendments to the Motorcar Act 1951 and a new rideshare pilot without releasing any technical documents, impact studies, or draft legislation. While this association supports modernizing transportation, it says the government is pushing the initiative prematurely and without transparency, leaving key economic, environmental, social, regulatory, and insurance questions unanswered. The BTOA argues that full impact assessments, a clear policy framework, stakeholder consultation, and detailed regulatory and insurance structures must be published before any pilot is promoted, warning that responsible transport reform requires evidence-based planning and collaboration to protect livelihoods, public safety, and the long-term stability of Bermuda's transportation system. Now it's time to take a look at the forecast. For the weather today, we're looking at a high of 72 degrees and a low of 71. The chance of precipitation is currently at 75%. Scattered showers are expected throughout the day. That's all for the news break today. My name is Simone Vaughn, and thanks for tuning in.
All righty. Thank you so much for that, Simone. Appreciate you very much. All right. For days of the year, well, it's Cyber Monday. Let's go through some things. It's quite a few things. All right. So we've got World AIDS Day. We've got Rosa Parks Day. We've got Prisoners for Peace Day and Antarctica Day. We've got Christmas Book Day. It's a lot, but I'm going to go with Cyber Monday. Cyber Monday. Now, I really don't know, but Cyber Monday isn't, I don't know if you know, is not that old. It really goes back to like 2005, which makes sense because, nobody was really shopping online in the early 90s, right? But Cyber Monday is pretty new. And it was 2014 when online retailers earned over $2 billion in profits that Cyber Monday, which became one of the biggest shopping holidays in the United States. Now, that said, I want to ask you, the audience, if you needed to buy something, would you prefer Black Friday or Cyber Monday? I'm going to be honest with you. Sitting on your device or computer and ordering something, not having to deal with traffic and lines, it's always a benefit. However, you all know how I think. When I lived in Florida, I would go into the local Target and there'd be 22 registers, right? And not one open, only the self-checkout. So if I'm not going into the stores, I'm not keeping someone employed. And I don't believe a business can survive just, keep people employed if everything's online. You can't keep the cashier there. So that said, while I prefer online, I would go in person, even though it's inconvenience in my day or whatever, simply because I know the impact of me going into that place. All right. But what are your thoughts? Are you a Cyber Monday or Black Friday? Let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Craig Simmons after this short break. Well, let me not say short break because then you all be sending me hate mail saying the break weren't short. Stick with us.
People's ACW, located at King Edward VII Memorial Hospital, carries over-the-counter medicines, toys, cards, and even toiletries. Our knowledgeable staff are there whether you're at emergency, visiting family, or a member of BHB staff, to show you our best even when you're feeling your worst. People's ACW, we're here for you.
Take a look at our workforce for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
Discover Drop It, your go-to grocery delivery. Browse and select from a wide range of groceries, from fresh produce to daily essentials. Our friendly drivers deliver fresh groceries to your door fast, saving you time and hassle. With Drop It, you get fresh groceries delivered fast so you can focus on what really matters. Drop It, freshness at your doorstep, delivered to your door with Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
Shoe bite? You can't say that. Oh, sorry. I'm just here practicing for my family game night this Christmas. Check it out. Shoe bite, Bermuda's own twist on the classic word guessing game, is here. Get ready for laughter, friendly chaos, and a whole lot of Bermuda flavor. And here's the best part. One lucky box has a golden ticket with a grand prize courtesy of One Communications. So visit BermudaTrivia.com to find out where to get yours today. Now, shoe bite, I'm trying to practice for my family game night.
At HSBC, how we do business in our community is as important to us as what we do for our community.
This is the 6th year that HSBC has graciously funded the She Leads program. This year we have over 30 girls who have registered from middle schools across the island to participate in this real-world experience, which exposes young girls to all kinds of traits and qualities and skills that they will need as they move forward in their leadership journey. It's a really wonderful time to be a girl in the world. There are so many opportunities open, and we want to make sure that our girls are prepared to take the lead in whatever spaces that they move into. So this program provides them with really kind of the groundwork to get those careers and those life journeys started. We want to thank HSBC so much for contributing and being the major sponsor for this program. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to have our girls participate at no cost. Everything is provided for them thanks to HSBC, and we really want to thank them for their support with this program.
Thank you to all of the charities, corporate partners, and HSBC volunteers for your commitment to our community.
Every space has a message, whether it's a store, a government office, or a doctor's waiting room. With Store Tunes Radio, transform your environment with customized music and professional messaging that keeps people informed, engaged, and at ease. Easy to use, built for organizations of every kind. Powered by Bermuda Communications Group. Store Tunes Radio, the soundtrack to better customer experiences. Visit storetunesradio.com to learn more. Alrighty, welcome back to the Big Show. Jamal Hartman here. It's the Daily Hour, brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and a big shout out to HSBC Bermuda for ensuring that we can do this with you on a regular basis and pump through the radio airwaves on Hot 107.5 with these most important community conversations. Folks, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. All right, folks, real quickly, to the parents, the Outer Bridges had an anniversary last week, so we want to give a big shout out and happy anniversary. They're almost 30. They're old, man. Almost 30-year anniversary. So to Anthony and Janice Outerbridge, a happy anniversary to them. And again, December 1st represents the end of hurricane season. Well, technically November 30th, but it's the first show since then today. But we are happy to say goodbye to hurricane season. But I did ask you before we went to break, before we bring Mr. Simmons in, I did ask, do you prefer Cyber Monday, which is what today represents, or Black Friday? And Suzanne Ingham says, makes no difference. If I need it and can afford it, I'll get it. Got to have money to do it. And then Janet Maynard says, Black Friday, I prefer to see my purchase and the customer service rep. Fair enough. All right, folks, let's give a warm TDH welcome to our very special guest for the day. He's a friend of the show. You might as well say a co-host at this point. Give a warm TDH welcome to Mr. Craig Simmons. Greetings, sir. How are you? Gotta get you this one. We got a new one. We gotta get you this new one. That's your Christmas gift. How about that? First off, thank you for doing this. Thank you. To me, this is probably one of the most important community conversations that we can have about finances, because it's really not on anyone else but ourselves, right? It's not on the government and what they're doing with our money. It's really about how we choose what we choose to do with our money and our funds. And especially during this time of year, Mr. Simmons, it's a tough one, because prior to you coming on, I stated, well, before we came live, I stated to you, and I have a budget of $500 for Christmas gifts every year. And that's mainly, children and immediate family. Personally, I've never asked people for anything for Christmas. That's just not who I am. That's not how I was raised to ask people for anything. Is there an expectation? Probably. But I've never asked pretty much anyone for anything. Now, let me say this. I've been given a lot, and I'm not disappointed that I've been privileged to be given a lot. But I've also never ask people from a child, really. People ask me what I want every year. I'm like, pictures. I don't know. And I will make a joke and put something I know they can't get, like a house or, some expensive, like I do that stuff. I think it's so important for us to have these conversations so that people don't feel a sense of guilt for not being able to get people things that they truthfully don't need, and also that they don't have the money to be able to afford. So thank you for doing this, and let's jump into it. And folks, if you have any questions or comments for Mr. Simmons, feel free to jump in. But let's start here. What are some of the biggest money traps that Bermudian consumers in particular may fall into this time of year?
Well, first up, consumerism. It's a relatively modern ideology. It's the idea that you buy stuff for the sake of buying things. You think in the title for today's talk, you talked about responsible consumerism. It's almost an oxymoron. It's like responsible drinking, particularly at my age. The concept of responsible drinking really means no drinking. So at different stages of people's lives, they're going to handle the holiday in very different ways. As a younger person, I treated the holiday season very differently than I do now. My granddaughter asked me about a month ago, Papa, why don't you buy us anything for Christmas? Because what I normally do with them, I inject Kwanzaa. I don't know whether your viewers or your listeners are familiar with the concept of Kwanzaa. It's an African American holiday started by Ron Karanga. But so for me, one of the principles that I try to get back to my grandchildren is this idea of collective work and responsibility. I can't remember which day of Kwanzaa it is. Ujamaa, Kujichagulia. Maybe it's day 3. And so one of the things the thing I'll be giving my grandchildren this year are gloves so that we can go and do a beach cleanup. Because I look at them and I see that they have so much. And so the marginal value of whatever I can give them is really, really small. And so I try and find experiences for them, experience that I can engage with them. So whenever they come over to visit me, if we're not going on an adventure, within 5 minutes, they start, complaining, because that's what going to Papa's house is all about. And I find that experiences of the things that I like to give to my grandkids. I remember a friend of ours, family friend, would give my daughters, when they were younger, tickets to the Bermuda Festival when the Bermuda Festival was running. So invariably there would be a sort of a dance recital or, just music events. And these things would happen in January. And it was about the experience, going to the Earl Cameron Theater, beforehand going out, learning the etiquette behind eating out, again, giving our young people the experiences that they're going to need to survive in this world. So for me, consumerism tends to focus more on the goods. And I feel that, we already have too much, for the most part. And then there's, like how we go about the things we're going to buy for Christmas. Invariably, we get on a debt cycle. And I need to be careful here, because not all consumers are created equal.
Right.
Those consumers at the upper end of the income distribution, they know how to use credit cards. So they would have a minimum credit balance on a credit card, if anything at all. And the Christmas season may come and they might just max out their credit card, take it up to $10,000. But rest assured, before the credit cycle ends in January, that credit card is paid off. Yeah. That's sort of the intelligent way to use a credit card.
Mhm.
At the other end of the income distribution, you've got folks whose credit cards are maxed out pretty much the entire year.
Mhm.
And so you're going through this process of managing your debt.
Mhm.
Now, paying down the minimum, on your credit card is extremely expensive. We're talking 20%
Mhm.
interest.
Sometimes 30. Gee.
Yeah, and so people get caught in a credit trap, much the same way people get caught into those what are they called, payday loans.
Mhm.
You're only making $500 a week. You get down to Thursday, you're broke, so you go and you borrow
Mhm.
against next week's pay. And
Mhm.
then you get back to the Thursday of the following week,
Mhm.
and you've got to borrow again. And of course, the interest on payday loans is oftentimes in the region of 400%. That is arguably the biggest problem I think that working class people have. We aspire to live lifestyles that are really beyond our means. I mean,
And
if you got the money to do it, go out and splurge.
but I tell you what, Mrs. Simmons, I think you're correct in that. I've been guilty of it myself, but I think what doesn't help is the social media or internet era that we're living in, as far as people living beyond their means and spending. I want to go back to, you mentioned Kwanzaa. For those who are not familiar with what that is, as Mr. Simmons mentioned, it is an African American cultural holiday celebrated from the 26th of December through the 1st of December. It's not a religious holiday, but it's cultural, meaning anyone can celebrate it. But the seven principles, and he was speaking about number three of the principles, which was Ujima, I think it is, collective work.
Collective work and responsibility.
There you go. And I just want to go over the other ones. Number one was Umoja, which was unity.
Unity.
Forgive me for the second one.
Kujichagulia.
Thank you, sir. Self-determination. Ujima, which he just mentioned, collective work and responsibility. Ujama, which is cooperative economics. Nia, which is purpose. Kumba, which is creativity. And Imani, which is faith. So just for those out there who may not have known, and again, if you have any questions or comments for Mr. Simmons, send them through. Mr. Simmons, let's touch on the emotional part, right? You often hear that spending during the holiday period is emotional. From an economist perspective, what's going on psychologically when people overspend during this season?
Okay. So people can be predictably irrational. If I can give an example that's not at all related to the holidays, it would have to do with people partying. So one of my favorite books is by Dan Ariely. It's called Predictably Irrational. So a young man going out to party, dance floor, probably grinding a young lady. And so the advice that I and any responsible person would give a young man going out for a night of partying is to put the condoms in your back pocket before you need them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's about understanding that once you get in the moment, you're not going to be able to think straight. So another idea that's probably sort of applicable to the present time. I don't know whether folks have these things in their pockets.
Mm.
So these things can get you in a lot of trouble.
Mm.
One of the strategies, because it is your emotions, you get caught up in the emotional thing. You get in the city of Hamilton and you're going around and people are shopping and you sort of lose your mind. One of the preventative measures that one can take would be it's pretty simple. You get a glass of water, you put the credit card in it, and then you put the water with the credit card in your freezer. Okay? So it won't be long before the water freezes, the credit card is in the water, and when you have this urge just like the young man who's on the dance floor grinding up along somebody. He's got the urge. If he's got the condom in his back pocket, he can responsibly deal with the urge. Similarly, when you get in that sort of consumerism frenzy, when that urge hits you and your credit card is in the freezer in a block of ice, you will have a calming down period. And by the time the ice melts and you can withdraw the credit card, you have calmed down and hopefully have come to your senses and realized that, oof, yeah, that was a bad idea to sort of buy that bread maker that I really didn't need. It's only going to litter my countertop. It's already covered in appliances from years gone by. So it's about taking, being rational about the season. You put yourself on a $500 limit. Yeah. Now there is a problem, because if you've got one of these things, you can go easily above your limit. So you've got to come up with strategies ahead of time to prevent yourself from losing your mind, because it is very, very easy once you get into the city of Hamilton and your emotions get the best of you, because that's really what you're fighting. It's the emotional thing. If you could stay calm, you would be able to save yourself a lot of anguish come January, February, because there is that cycle where we run the debts up and we have to deleverage, figure out a way to pay down on our credit card, probably using the minimum balance, which doesn't work. I mean, all you're doing is making Mr. Master and Visa very rich, and the bank that gave you the credit card, one of whom is a sponsor of this show. And you as an individual are not winning. And I want people to win, people to sort of grow their wealth. If anything, you want to be on the other side. A great Christmas gift might be to give your young people shares in a company, so that they're on the flip side of Christmas.
So you just transitioned, because I want to go there. Not all gifts or not all spending is necessarily bad. You in particular encourage intentional, value-driven spending. So what does that look like in practice? You just mentioned shares and so on. Like, how can families decide what truly matters before they even think about hitting the shop with the credit card?
Well, for intentional spending, and then, there is spending, and then there's spending on some trinket that is only going to sort of gather dust for the rest of the year is different than spending on, I don't know, a book or some electronic device that a kid can actually use to assist them with their education, or something that's going to, I don't know, like with my kids getting the tickets to the Bermuda Festival. There's all sorts of things you can spend money on, but a lot of it comes down to exposure and talking to the young people beforehand. So, getting kids into investing. Financial literacy is something that is finally growing in Bermuda. So we need to get our young people thinking in terms of, what I want for Christmas is an index fund. Maybe, go to Vanguard. Vanguard's one of the more popular index funds. Papa, can you, get me, I don't know, take $1,000 or $500 and put it in a Vanguard index fund? Imagine you gave that to a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old. The lessons, the growth that will come with that. And I'm talking about the sort of the intellectual growth. I'm not talking about the financial stuff, because in fact, losing money on the stock market is, arguably better than gaining money. The problem with gaining and winning is that you think that your success comes from skill and not luck, because there's a lot of luck in playing the stock market. Let's make that part clear. But the benefits that a young person can get from learning about financial literacy, however you choose to teach it, will set them up for a good life. And again, that's the flip side of consumerism.
Let's talk about because you've been a proponent of entrepreneurship, local entrepreneurship, small businesses. Supporting local business and small business is always encouraged, especially around the holidays. How can consumers shop locally in a way and support small businesses and the hustlers? How can consumers do that in a way that's sustainable for their wallets?
Again, Jamal, you said it. You've got a limit, $500. Yeah, that's it. And you need to be intentional. You need to be very careful. So for me, my daughters will probably go to some place like Rock Island and get me a pound of Kenyan coffee or something like that, supporting a local business. You have to be intentional. You have to plan. I realize that some people start this planning process after Cup Match, but a lot of the spending, in fact, is not local. At a birthday the other day, got a wonderful present. It was some soaps, lovely soaps. Again, a local entrepreneur producing these things. Because you do have a choice. You could go into one of these multinational corporations and buy your soaps, but certain products are amenable to production in Bermuda, supporting those kinds of things. And soap is something that I use maybe once or twice a month. It's personal hygiene, I suppose, is important. But yeah, being intentional, being careful, very careful, and not sort of just getting into that city core. I was there. I picked up 2 wonderful books on, was it Saturday? I'm into insurance. I was so happy to get this one. And I was in that area, that downtown core, and I could see how you could very easily lose your mind. My strategy for not losing my mind was to find a quiet place. And I started to read the book because I could see that my temperature was going up. I was getting a little, I got the money in my pocket and I lose it and end up thinking, oh, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Before you know it, I've spent several $100s. And at the end of the day, for what? What was the point of me doing that? So, there needs to be a point into what you're doing. Or to go back to Kwanzaa, one of my favorite principles is Nia. It's the name I gave to my eldest daughter. Purpose. What exactly is your purpose? That way, you won't get caught up into this sort of consumerism, which by definition is taking you to a place that you might not want to go, especially and I'm really concerned about working class people. Middle class people, they can weather the storm as it were a lot better. But my fear is that working class people they get trapped. They get trapped by the marketing, and it's just a painful thing to see that come January 1st, where folks are going to have to go to the landlord and says, I can't make rent this month. And then you're struggling to meet your obligations for the first sort of 3 or 4 months of the year. This is not good for your mental health, because you're under this. You're putting yourself under stresses that you need not be under. Life in Bermuda is stressful as it is. And that's where consumerism, I don't encourage it. Let's put it mildly that way. I understand the economics behind it. In fact, here's the thing. If everybody in Bermuda were to save, let's say, 30% more, that would be bad for the economy. There's a concept, I used to teach. It's called the paradox of thrift. Saving is good, but if everybody saves, that's bad. Well, I'm only concerned about certain kinds of people, and I want those certain kinds of people to save. The truth is, At 35,000 feet, when you're looking at the macro economy in Bermuda, the savings rate in Bermuda is around 40%. That means that on average, Bermudians are saving 40 cents on every dollar they earn.
Mhm.
On average. Now that's a profane word when you're in the economic domain.
Mhm.
People at the lower end of the socioeconomic ladder are dissaving. I did some work looking at the household expenditure survey, the last one that was done in 2013. And sure enough, at the upper end of the income distribution, people are saving in excess of half their income. But at the bottom end of the socioeconomic ladder, people have negative saving.
Mhm.
That disturbed me to no end. And I think people need to understand that they're being played.
Yeah.
Don't be played.
You speak,
Understand the system is stacked against you. If you are working class, the system is stacked against you. Your incomes since 2000 have not kept up with the cost of living.
yeah.
So it's not like this economic system, like you're winning in this economic system. You're not. You're not winning when you go to work.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily going to win, or you won't win if you get caught up into a consumerism frenzy. You need to be particularly careful with every single dollar that you have.
Shamari Sky, I think, touched on something you were just saying. He says the holidays are essentially a merchant tax. So if the consumer class does pay, what happens to the economy? Does it mean does not pay? I think that's what you were talking about just now, about people saved and held onto their money and the like. What would happen to the economy? I think this is an interesting conversation. It's always one because I think people associate. I mentioned earlier, Mr. Simmons, prior to you coming on, the guilt, right? People feeling guilty for not being able to purchase something. I think when you have so many children around and children have this expectation, that needs to be like set early in their lives. Like, look, you got one gift, and maybe it's something you need, like books or a bookcase or something like that. But it needs to be nipped in the bud early. But when that happens, look, you've got adults that want to impress children or impress other people, right? And that's all built around it. What are some practical steps that you can think of that people can take to budget for something like Christmas without feeling or like they're sacrificing the joy and gifts and celebration of the time?
Well, let's talk about the joy. My mother, for all of my life, she ran a nursery. And so after Christmas, the parents would very proudly, show off the gifts that they had gotten for their children. So, they marched down the steps after Christmas with the toys in the box, and then sort of leave the toys for the children to play with throughout the day. Invariably, what happened was that the children would spend more time playing with the box that the toys came in than the toys themselves.
Mm.
My mother astutely understood that the toy didn't do anything for imagination. The box is the thing that allows the kids to play. They can get in the box and think that they're in a Lamborghini going down the 401, or that they're flying through the air. We need to sort of encourage imagination. And oftentimes when you give people so-called the things, you're deadening their imagination. We want kids to think outside the box. And so that's the first thing. You mentioned oftentimes Christmas is about parents doing things for their children that they didn't get. So coming up, I didn't get all the gifts that I, thought I needed or wanted. And so I'm going to make sure that my kids are not going to be in that place.
Mm.
Well, the thing is, the fact that you didn't receive any gifts coming up, that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. You don't want to go to the other extreme and sort of flood your kids with things that they don't need.
Mhm.
It's about placing value. How do you convey the concept of value to children? And then, of course, there's the whole thing about this time of year, the word that we haven't used so far. Um, some people call it Xmas, which is probably a more accurate description of this time of year.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be Christ Mass,
Mhm.
a celebration of this person, Jesus Christ. Yeah, there were some gifts involved in it, but you know, there are gifts that you can exchange at this time of year, but don't, as the old timers would say, don't tear the understand the limit of this gift thing. And like with social media, you think it's free. No, it's not free.
Mhm.
You think that you're getting something for free, but you're not. You are giving away information. You are being played.
Mhm.
Um, and arguably that's what's happening this time of year. You are being played. You're being manipulated by, as you said, social media, marketing, to get those dollars out of the pocket that don't necessarily need to be out of your pocket. And it's not necessarily making you happy. Arguably, it's making you unhappy. Charitable giving, I mean, working with the Salvation Army, spending the holiday, helping out at a soup kitchen, doing beach cleanup. These are things that you can do to give. And one thing about it, you will always remember that kind of giving. If you take your kids down to a soup kitchen, or you take your kids to a beach and clean up, or clean up the neighborhood, these kinds of things, those are the things that your children will remember forever. They
Mm.
won't remember the trinket that you got them necessarily.
Mm. That's so important there. I really appreciate you saying that. I think it actually takes it back to meaning, some sort of meaningful celebration rather than a gift giving celebration. Um, I always say we shouldn't need to wait until a new calendar year to make changes. I think that's probably one of the laziest things we can do. Change is, it's an evolving thing. It's an not daily, but it should happen as needed, right?
Yeah.
I
The
think.
best gift I got last year,
Mhm.
it was a card from my son.
Mhm.
I'm looking at it. It says, "Growing up without strong family ties, I always wished I would someday have a loving family I could call my own, and
Mhm.
that we would share holidays that warmed my heart and eased my mind.
Mhm.
Now, here I am with a wonderful spouse and family of in laws that is more amazing than I could have ever imagined.
Mhm.
And I have you, that's me, to thank most of all for being a great role model for the person who has grown up to be the love of my life. Merry Christmas." Now that
And
brought tears to my eyes.
but doesn't that let's talk about that man to man? That was from a young man to another man. Doesn't that feel so much better? Those words than, as you mentioned, any trinket. Like for me, having lost my mother and her final days being during Christmas, one of the things I value most, especially because I'm not necessarily full time around, I live between two places. I absolutely value being around my family more than anything nowadays. So for me, it's really about actually getting around them and annoying them. Like that's just who I am, right? Like
Yes.
that to me is the greatest gift for me at this point. And doing everything I can to try to live healthier and better so that we get to enjoy more of these. But that's even when it comes to gifts, Mr. Simmons, like something I done is on my birthday in 2023, it was so much happening. And I sent out a card, handwritten cards. I mailed them, handwritten cards to so many people in my life. And I just said in these cards, different messages. I say, hey, look, this just, as I celebrate this birthday, I want to thank you for, being a part of my life or whatever they had contributed. I was thanking them. And certain people hit me up, shocked, like, well, why did you do that? I'm like, because I think birthdays, we celebrate ourselves, and some of us wouldn't be who we were or are. And I think that's important. And even when it comes to gifts, Mr. Simmons, like something I done is on my birthday in 2023, it was so much happening. And I sent out a card, handwritten cards. I mailed them, handwritten cards to so many people in my life. And I just said in these cards, you know, without the people in our lives and around us. And so for me, I like to take these opportunities to give thanks to others. I remember in high school, at Northlands. And yes, Northlands was a high school at one point. And I remember my birthday always started was September 12th. It was always around when school started. And people be like, oh, what you want for your birthday? What you get? And I'm like, I think I should probably get my parents something. I didn't have no money or no job. And people found it weird. And I said, well, without them, I'm not here. I'm not me. I never got my parents anything. But the thought that I had was like, we really should be celebrating them on our birthdays, right? That's just how I've always thought differently. But we are set in a way, because Mr. Simmons, we're not thinking about writing kind words. We don't even write anymore. Think about it. We get a card, we sign our name. We're not writing what your son wrote there. Like, how do we get there to understand that? Because again, I don't have people in my life that necessarily say, oh, I want this, I want that. Even my nieces, like I have to ask them what they want. But unfortunately, there are people who struggle with it. And, I have a client that always tells me, you have to practice saying no. And no is in the vocabulary of people who have the means. And when I say that, a millionaire and billionaire is going to say no more than a person who's struggling to make ends meet. But how do we get there? How do we get to a point where we are okay saying no without risking the relationship or damaging something that we seem to have valued?
Boy, you put something out there. Relationships develop best when there's a crisis. Yeah. But you meet someone, you're dating them, and everything's going fine. I often say that you don't, when your partner can fluctuate around you, the first time they let that thing go, that's when they're getting comfortable with you. Yeah. If she's holding it in and riding down the road and letting it go, then yeah, you need to, if you're going to get to know someone, you've got to get to know the good, the bad, the ugly. You need to see the warts. But I think we're so busy profiling on social media. I'm going to show you at my best. Well, if you really love me, you care about me, you need to see all parts of me, at my best, at my worst, and everything in between. And that's how we foster great relationships. Let's not be afraid. Let's be real. We talk about being real, but unfortunately, social media has us sort of showing one particular part and people thinking that is the norm, but no, that's not the norm. Oh, you've gone mute.
Sorry about that. I was saying a few people have let us know Facebook was down about 20 minutes ago. So apologies about that. But hey, we are on multiple social media platforms and we're on Hot 107.5. But we've got Mark Arthur. He's asking Mr. Simmons, have you done a study on the pros and cons of credit cards offered in Bermuda?
No. The pros, for me, a credit card is like insurance. So I have an overseas credit card. I make sure that if I'm traveling, the balance is zero. That way, if I get stuck somewhere, I have an insurance policy. It's called the limit on my credit card. If you leave Bermuda and it's already maxed out, once your cash goes, you're really in a bad place. So it's about how you use this tool. You need to use it very, very carefully. And if you use it as an insurance policy for overseas travel, even for local spending, that's very different than using it for other things. I have some friends that, in fact, some colleagues that would buy everything, groceries and everything on their credit card in order to earn travel points or something. I never quite understood it, but they would pay it off at the end of the month. So it's really about how you are going to use that tool to further your ends. This particular family used it to rack up travel miles, whatever those things are called. And they would use that to finance the vacations in the summer. I thought that's pretty smart. But it takes discipline. It takes, you got to be intentional about your spending. If you're not intentional, someone else will give you intentions. So again, the pros and cons, it's like anything. It's a tool. Learn to use it correctly.
Yeah. Rashida Godwin, going back to Kwanzaa, said she's having an event December 7th at Treehouse from 12 to 3. So if you want to learn more about Kwanzaa, you can check them out. But we have Shy of Key Official says, the best gift someone gave me was telling me the reality of this world, that I'm responsible for my actions and growth, and giving me tools on how to be responsible, how to grow, and how to face reality. That reminds me of something a friend of mine said to me years ago. He said, one of the best gifts we can give to our family is our health, great health. And, I actually have one of the affirmations in my book. It basically speaks about one of the best gifts we can give to our family and loved ones is to be an asset to them, not to be a burden to them. When we speak about gifts, everything seems like tangible, like physical. It has to be physical. But what you received was a card, but it was the words in the card that speak about, the gift of words and meaningful gifts, and how meaningful gifts can actually save us from the debts that we're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, that card from my son, legally he's my son-in-law, but he's my son. It's still up on my bulletin board. It's from last Christmas. Words. My mother's birthday was November the 7th, and she's been gone just over 2 years. And this summer, I made it my business. I said, I'm going to write my mother a love letter. And so on November the 7th, I was able to, I can't say post it because, she's dead. But the effort, the thought that went into writing this love letter to my mother, I mean, I shared it with my daughters and a couple of other people, but it's a different kind of gift. Yeah, some might say, the rational person would say, well, that's stupid. I mean, she can't possibly get it. But no, I think it's the intention behind it. And oftentimes we're not clear about intentionality. And maybe if we spent more time in the Christmas period thinking intentionally, we could make it a lot better holiday. Yeah. We buy Christmas trees, but maybe it would make more sense to plant a tree. That were part of the holiday. I mean, we all know about global warming, and if anything, we shouldn't be chopping down trees. We should be planting trees. If again, just being intentional about the whole holiday, and expressing feelings, whether it be in words, in your own words, or the words of a Hallmark. My son has already told me he is going from Somerset to St. George's looking for the next card that he's going to give to me. He told me this summer. He's going from pharmacy to card shop looking for something that gives the feeling, the words that he wants to convey to me. I think, wow, he's on the hunt. And so I'm really looking forward to sort of getting that gift from him, because I could tell it means a lot to him. He is giving me a part of himself. That's what I get whenever I read that card. It's like, wow, having that kind of impact and being grateful. The fact that he's grateful for his wife. He understands where that woman came from. Yeah.
As we head into a new year, what are some of the best habits Bermudians can adopt to protect their financial health after the holiday spending rush?
Okay, so you talked about wealth. There's an expression that says your health is your wealth. I like to remind people of Steve Jobs, the person that invented the iPhone. He got sick, and despite all that money, didn't help him. So you're first up, if you're talking about wealth, building true wealth, make sure that you're healthy. If you want to be healthy, that means you got to stay away from certain things. I mean, sugar is not your friend. Hydrogenated oils are not your friends. If you need to sort of adjust your lifestyle so that you can be healthy. The other day, my daughters called me and I said, well, I was actually on my way out to the gym. They were like, oh, geez, okay, fine, go. They are just so happy that I go to the gym because, I suppose from a closed, rational point of view, they think, oh, well, that means my father, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money on a caregiver. So that's the first thing. Make health an important part of your new year. Or forget about the new year. Start today. Be intentional about things that you do. Because if you have intention, if you wake up every day and you look in the mirror and you make a commitment to being intentional, you're less likely to be distracted. Because let's face it, there's a lot of stuff out there, and especially with social media and this thing called the internet. There are so many distractions in life. In fact, the scarcest, the one resource that entrepreneurs understand is in limited supply is attention. You only have, there's so much out there, and there's only 24 hours in your day. How can someone attract your attention? And what I see happening is people would sort of say outlandish things. Sure, you experience that on YouTube, Instagram, all of these platforms. It's about being outlandish, being out there in order to grab your attention, because people understand we've only got you about 20 seconds, which is probably why TikTok works so well. Intentionality, taking control of your life and not being controlled by others. That's probably the best advice that I could give to people, because if you take control, and it might mean going out without your wallet, putting this thing in a glass of water and putting it in the freezer. You've got to do things differently. If you don't change, if you're not committed to getting better, well, you're not going to get better. And worst case scenario, you're going to get worse.
Yeah.
So intentionality, commitment to self, not to necessarily a job or anything like that, but to self.
I'm interested, audience. Just a quick question, yes or no? And again, this is personal. You don't have to say anything, but yes or no? Do you have a budget set for your Christmas shop? Just a yes or no. Do you have a budget set, Mr. Simmons? Before you head out, obviously, we've been talking about individual stuff. We usually talk about government stuff coming up. We have another financial budget coming beginning of the year for the government. What can Bermudians in their personal, I guess, bank accounts or spending learn from the way that government functions and runs with their books? What are some of the takeaways you believe we can learn?
Number one, pay off your debts. Now, there are certain debts that are not bad. So if you've got a mortgage debt is probably the one that you want to have. You don't want to have credit card debt. I try and push this with the government. We've got $605 million coming due in January of 2027. My advice to the government is pay off the $605 million. Let's get our debt down. This idea of managing debt, It's like, again, from my perspective, responsible drinking. I mean, I'm a senior citizen. No, I can't do that stuff. Maybe that's the lifestyle of a young person where you can manage your debt. But given the world that we're living in, where pensions are problematic, you need to save. You need to get on the other side of spending. And that other side is finding ways to grow your wealth. In order to grow your wealth, you must first save. In order to save, you need to get your consumption down and your income up. You need to buy fewer things, buy only what's necessary. Find ways to cut your spending, whether that be getting into community garden, growing a little family garden, buying a fishing rod and off the rocks fishing so that you can reduce your protein expenditures in your budget, finding creative ways. I mean, I have a family in my neighborhood. They come out and they fish maybe 3 or 4 times a week. And that it's not pleasure. They're fishing for food. Bring the kids, and the kids are out there and they're learning how to fish, how to clean a fish. And I look at this family, I think, wow, that's a beautiful thing. They didn't have to say to their kids, oh, we're poor. No. We're just doing things differently.
Yeah.
And unless you're going to do that, make that commitment. And I don't want you to wait until January 1st. You start today. That way, when January 1st rolls around, the habit has already been established. It's really about habits, having good habits. Get rid of the bad habits. Commit to that.
Yeah. Mr. Simmons, thank you so much for this conversation. Audience, I really hope that, it tickled the conscience of so many of us this morning. We did ask, just now, does anyone have a budget for the spending during the holiday? And Dr. Anthony Richardson said yes. Jewel Eve said yes. Stacey Ann Brown said yes. Bermudian Girl 13 says no. But we've learned a lot this morning. We've discussed a lot this morning. I am grateful, honestly. I am very grateful to you for always making time to have this discussion with us. And I'm looking forward to many more going forward. But in the meantime, wishing you peace and a lot of love and gratitude this holiday season and beyond. So thank you so much, Mr. Simmons. And we'll definitely be in touch to discuss again soon. All right.
All the best.
Thank you. That was Mr. Craig Simmons, folks. Very important person in our community. And I don't think, we can thank him enough for gracing us with his presence and his knowledge. And I really, really want to encourage everyone, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, X, or Instagram, or if you're tuned in on Hot 107.5, to share these conversations with your friends, your family, your colleagues. They are community conversations that can truly help us. So I encourage you to do that. We're going to take our final short break. We'll be back after this break with the Daily Play, and I'll wrap it up. All right? So do not go anywhere. Stick with us.
Dreaming of expanding your business? With BDC's Loan Guarantee Program, we support your ambitions. Get up to 75% guarantee on bank or credit union loans up to $300,000. Just your vision and our support. Apply today and unlock new business opportunities. BDC, Bermuda Business starts here.
For over 70 years, Bermuda Pest Control has been protecting homes and businesses island-wide. We offer a full suite of services, including rodent control, termite fumigation, and general insect control and maintenance. Our team of experts will quickly and efficiently eliminate any pest problem you may have. With Bermuda Pest Control, you can enjoy a pest-free home in no time. We're committed to providing fast, reliable, and solution-driven services for our customers. It's what we've been doing since 1952. Call Bermuda Pest Control today and say goodbye to pests for good.
Looking for the best care for your pets? Novazog Feed and Supply has everything you need, from top quality foods to toys and supplies. We've got it all. Join our frequent buyer program and earn rewards every time you shop. Plus, we've been awarded the Clever Customer Initiative program for helping you save more. And don't forget, we open an hour early on Saturdays so you can get a head start on your pet care. Visit us today or shop online for easy pickup or delivery. Your pets will thank you.
Alrighty, welcome back. Thanks again to Craig Simmons for making the time to have such an important community conversation. And I really do hope that you will continue to engage, like, love, share the conversations with your friends, your family, your colleagues. I don't know about you, but I really do find these conversations helpful if we all take heed. It's helpful to me. I know where I come up short economically and with my finances. And I think sometimes we need people to remind us, hey, you're doing this wrong. But also encouraging us, not just telling us doing it wrong, but how to do it right. Just want to give big thanks to the BAC group of companies, Medicals, Lindos, People's Pharmacy, and a big shout out to HSBC Bermuda for ensuring that we can have these conversations with you on a regular basis. Folks, it is time for the Daily Play brought to you by Bermuda Trivia. We do have various new Bermuda Trivia editions, educational and helpful editions available at stores throughout Bermuda. Follow Bermuda Trivia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, and TikTok to find out why it's Bermuda's favorite trivia game. All right, it's holiday trivia today. This is a very easy question. What Christmas comedy movie featured two bad guys known as the Wet Bandits? Of course, Stacey Ann Brown, it's Home Alone, and Jill Eve, it is Home Alone. You both got it correct. Congrats, congrats, congrats. All right, folks, let's wrap it up. Well, first thing, as we discussed earlier this morning regarding the Premier David Burt and asking Britain, he asked Britain to do more for our security. I agree. As long as we are a British territory, colony, and it's their responsibility, then yeah, they need to do the work. This is for a much larger conversation that if we want to do it ourselves, then we have to build the confidence of the general public that we can do it ourselves. And I don't think that has been done over the last 4 or 5 premiers of Bermuda. So I agree with the Premier of Bermuda that Britain needs to do more for our security. As far as the conversation with Mr. Simmons, yeah, hey, look, man, the truth hurts. And even myself, I've gone overboard in years, putting myself in credit card debt to buy gifts for people. As an adult, I never thought I would face the day when I didn't live up to expectations, getting someone things they didn't need for Christmas. I just got them things that I could afford, and the way they reacted, and it was a lesson to me, right? It was a lesson about who I surround myself with. At the end of the day, I have everything I need. I don't, and truthfully, most of us have what we need. If we have a roof over our heads, we're able to clothe ourselves and feed ourselves, right? Most of the other stuff is wants if our health is in check, right? But Mama and Nana used to always say, save for a rainy day. And I say something differently. I say invest it for that day. I like what Mr. Simmons said about giving shares in a company, setting up a investment fund and stuff like that. Because for the most part, the trinkets don't last long. And that's the real. All right, folks, I've got to give you some daily inspiration, and I'll give you this. I'll just repeat what I said earlier in a different way. Don't allow others to guilt you into giving what you don't have or can't afford to give. End quote. I'll leave you with that. Audience, please don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House, Lindo's, People's Pharmacy, and a big shout out to HSBC Bermuda for ensuring that we can do this with you on a regular basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. I'm Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great day. We are is out. Peace.